1971.
Because I was asking the Amshnavers, could I wear a spudik? And the Amshnaver says, you don't really need one. And, well, maybe we really need Shlomo is what I think the inference behind. Because the first occasion that he had to ask Shlomo, so Shlomo, as they're meeting at curbside, but he's trying to drag him to the kotel, he says, Shlomo, what do you think about Dr. Ritchie wearing a spudik?
What's the significance of a spudik?
That'll be the greatest.
For not all our listeners know what a spudik is about.
A spudik is a traditional hat that each group of Hasidim have their own sort of style of a spudik. It's a fur hat that comes from Eastern Europe. It's very beautiful. It's like a shtreimel. It's a type of shtreimel, it's a spudik. It's a tall fur.
But it's only for distinguished Hasidim.
No, well, I think all of Hasidim are distinguished, but only people who identify themselves as real Hasidim will wear it. So in those days, most of European Jewry was lost. At the Amshnaver Tish in Bayit Vagan, before I started wearing one, there wasn't a minyan of Jews wearing a spudik. There would be maybe 20, 30 people at the table, but there weren't 10 of them wearing a spudik. So I began to wear one after getting permission from both my rebbes. And then a lot of people, now you see hundreds and thousands wearing an Amshnaver spudik, but it wasn't very common.
Okay, so this was 1971.
Yeah.
After Tisha B'Av.
So we're
talking about August.
So I'm taking the Amshnaver Rebbe and most of his family, including his son-in-law and the present Rebbe and Gabayim and so on. And Shlomo says he'll join us there, and we get there first. And Shlomo, about less than 5 minutes later, is coming escorted by two top Hasidim, Elya Sukkot, two Gingish, Elya Sukkot and Nosson Schaefer. They're both beautiful redhead, both hippies.
Going back to the early days of the House of Love and Prayer.
And
when he was Alex Scott.
He was Alex Scott, and Nosson Schaefer is now rabbi and a very distinguished person in Boston and Sharon, Massachusetts.
So Shlomo was escorted by his two Hasidim.
Two people, and we were a bit worried, because it looked like the same crowd that had stoned us, so to speak, the night before. But there's the Amshnaver, and when I'm walking to go greet Shlomo, and who joins me was also the Amshnaver Gabbai and the Amshnaver son-in-law and so on, come to join me, and they're asking the crowd, what's going on here? I says, well, the Amshnaver Rebbe invited Shlomo to the kotel. So that word got around rather quickly. And the Red or Black Sea parted, and Shlomo came to join the Amshnaver, and the Amshnaver came to join Shlomo. And it was a very beautiful meeting there in the plaza of the kotel. It was close to midnight after Tisha B'Av. And so we knew from that point the word would be out that he was under the Amshnaver's protection, you could say, as his hechsher.
But this was very important because sometimes Reb Shlomo was ostracized by certain people, and for them to know that the Amshnaver Rebbe values him and respects him, it was
and made it a stray protect him. He asked Shlomo then to sing for him at the kotel, and then the Shlomo asked me, the Amshnaver knew I want to hear an Amshnaver. Amshnaver sang a beautiful old niggin, and then he asked Shlomo to sing yet another niggin, and Shlomo sang again another beautiful niggin. It was a very, and all the Amshnaver Hasidim and the few the few Hittite Hasidim, we all joined in. It was only about 20 of us, surrounded by what I called almost an igloo, because there was such a big circle and people climbing up on each other's backs to see what's going on. It was like we were encircled and ensphered in Hasidim, listening to every word.
And Shlomo came to many smachot of the Amshnaver, Sheva Brachot, weddings and things like that, right? Now, the story that we were talking about before, Moshav Ma'or Modi'in, there was some question whether the Sochnut or Poalei Agudat Yisrael would actually allow Shlomo's Hasidim to settle in the Moshav. And then you had an important role here in what happened, and you were mentioning Rav Eliyahu Kitov.
Every Moshav was by Israeli tradition under the auspices of some group. And as it turned out, by Hashgacha Pratis, that Modi'in was under the auspices of Polei Aguda. And the Amshnover was very close to Polei Aguda, as I was saying, through Avram Mikotovsky, who was Eliyahu Kitov's, was his pen name. So the Book of Our Heritage and all those beautiful holy books was a very close chassid. And they were raised together in Amshnover. It was a real Amshnover chassid. So the Amshnover Rebbe spoke to them and said, he vouched for them and said they should, and so with the Amshnover's backing, Polei Aguda gave us the opportunity to receive the community. So we were given it in 1976, a small group of only not even 10 families. There was 9 families, and
you were one of the founding families of the Moshav. In the first couple of years that you were living there, you were probably the only one who had a car or something, or who had a profession.
We lived there 1 year. I was a doctor, and it basically, in a sense, was hard for me to be there. I did go in a tiny bit to the hospital in Rehovot to run the pediatric ward at night, 1 night a week. But basically, I was busy helping set up the Moshav. But after a year, I went back to Jerusalem. But I dedicated that year to getting the Moshav established.